So, growing up in the house that we borrowed or used, it was part of my dad's salary in from the 60s up into the 70s. Um, we lived in a house, and in those days, when you owned property and your family was growing, you did not sell the house and buy a bigger house. What you did was you added onto the house always. And in the old houses, there was different levels of floors. You always had to step down, or you had to step up, or the roof was at different levels in different rooms because they weren't contractors, professional contractors, builders. They just did what they could to provide for the family. So the house that we lived in, that I remember clearly, had different levels and had old wood and old plumbing that rattled and made noise whenever you would turn the faucet on or you would flush the toilet. There was always sounds at night. You could hear when you were sleeping, you could hear the squirrels or mice or whatever up in the ceilings running around. But that was comforting because that's an old sounds that you're used to in an old house. Or the floorboards were, creaking. There was always sounds that happened, and each room had a purpose, multiple purposes, because it wasn't that big of a house. And it reminds me now that I've worked at Hogtown Creek Headwaters, that house before it was remodeled to become a center. I was walking through the house before the remodeling, and it reminded me of my old home because every room was different. The ceiling heights, the floor, where the floors were, patchwork. And now when you walk through it, it still reminds me, even though it's been remodeled and it's a beautiful property and beautiful center, it still has that old feeling that I find very comforting. The old rich woods that they had found underneath wallpaper that they preserved reminds me of home and what I grew up with that has been preserved forever.